get you that markets update now. The JSE facing lower Asian markets this morning as the world awaits to see what will happen in mainland China as the world's second largest economy reports record high infection numbers. This is COVID-19 we're talking about. Citizens there have taken to the streets to protest against the strict zero COVID-19 policy and the lockdowns. Bianca Botes is Executive Director at Citadel Global, joining us now for a quick markets update. Bianca, good morning to you. It's been a while since I spoke to you. Let's start with the Rand, which is staging a rebound against major currencies. What's driving market moves there?
Good morning to you and the viewers at home. When we start looking at the dynamic of the Rand, we've actually seen it regain some significant ground against the dollar, as you rightly pointed out. Currently, the Rand is a little bit on edge with the unfolding of events in China. However, we are still trading around the 17.14 mark, which is well below the highs of 18 we've seen recently. So all in all, very good performance from the Rand. Basically, when we start looking at what is driving these factors, is all the focus is really on the Fed at the moment and the anticipation that the Fed will start tapering down on how quickly they are hiking rates in the U.S. Markets are pricing in a 50 basis points hike for December, and market has really taken well to this, knowing or rather predicting that inflation has peaked and that the Fed will be less hawkish in coming months.
Yeah, let's talk about the world's second largest economy, China. And the reports there, it's not pretty. Record numbers of new infections when it comes to COVID-19. It's a fifth consecutive day on Sunday that they have been seeing an increase in these numbers. What kind of impact could this cause for the economy?
I think for a lot of people, it's actually quite surreal that we are still talking about COVID-19 and pandemic and lockdown, because the rest of the world has really moved away from that. But China has taken a very strict zero COVID policy stance, which means that they have been in consecutive lockdowns and movements restrictions since the inception of the pandemic. And it's really putting a lot of pressure not only on the economy, but also on the mental well-being of residents. We have now seen residents take to the street, which is actually very unprecedented in China. You don't often see in-person protests. And this has given the markets a bit of jitters. Firstly, we are looking to see how the government will respond to these protests. And secondly, we are looking to see whether there will be continuous lockdowns in China. When we start looking at the dynamic of lockdown in China, it's not just an effect on the people and the movement of people within the country, but also it ripples through to other countries, especially large trading partners of China, such as, let's say, Australia and South Africa, for instance. Movements of goods become restricted, causing pressure on supply chain, and that in turn actually leads to shortages and inflation, which are some of the effects we are seeing in the market at the moment actually stems from that restriction of movement of goods. So we're really keeping a close eye on that. It's not a pretty picture for emerging markets. And if there are more risks coming out of China, we can actually expect this current bear or bull trend that we are seeing in risk asset actually reverse, and markets can become more jitterish as we move into the end of the year.
Yeah. Let's talk commodities for a moment. Gold has dipped on a stronger dollar, with oil plunging on demand fears. Talk us through the latest drivers there.
So when we look at gold in isolation, one tends to think that this is a safe haven asset. And yes, that theory holds as long as we are in low interest rate environments. The moment that we are in an interest rate hiking cycle that we are in now, your opportunity cost of holding gold actually increases. And then investors actually flock into dollars where they can earn a decent return on their money as well. So the dollar has been performing well on the back of that safe haven demand, and in effect that actually diminishes the value of gold. So gold is trading lower because we're seeing a stronger dollar. And then on the flip side, we are also looking at oil plunging, and that's really a demand driven issue for the hard commodity. If China is going into lockdown and stricter lockdown for longer, we can expect that this, as you mentioned, the second largest economy in the world, who consumes well over 50% of global commodities, that their demand will decrease, and that's actually putting pressure on the oil price at the moment.
Yeah, let's conclude the conversation with a quick look at the local calendar, Bianca. The focus will be on the jobless rate coming out of Stats SA tomorrow. Two questions in one. What are your expectations in relating to this data, but also importantly, how likely are we to see an improvement in these numbers?
Our forecast for the third quarter is around about the 34% mark. So you'll notice that that's a slight tick up from the previous quarter, quarter two. We saw 33.9%. Currently, analysts are putting 34.3% as the tentative number that we are focusing on for tomorrow. So not really looking at an improvement in unemployment figures. But what we need to bear in mind is that we actually did see a significant improvement quarter on quarter coming from quarter one to quarter two. So that's really assisted unemployment in South Africa. As we head into the end of the year, we're probably expecting for South African unemployment to hover around the 35% mark for 2023. And then longer term view, we'll probably look towards 36% in the longer term. What's very important is that we also need to look at youth unemployment, which is currently a very worrisome figure. So markets locally will certainly be focusing on that, but we don't anticipate the rand to respond much to this reading.
Yeah, Bianca Botes, let me thank you very much. That last bit there, I think that was the universe speaking on my behalf for laughing at me. A little earlier. All right, Bianca Botes, executive.
Laughing with you.
Thank you very much.
Laughing with you, not us. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thanks. Have a good day. Bianca Botes at Citadel Global, giving us the markets update there. All right.